Hi, I'm Andrea Bare with the William Davidson Institute, and we're here today to talk with Ray Cummings, Director of Market Dynamics at PATH, which is a leading NGO in the global health space. Ray, welcome.
Thank you, Andrea.
Really appreciate you visiting Ann Arbor and spending time talking with us about the various activities that PATH is involved in. Now you head the Market Dynamics group at PATH, which is a relatively new organization within PATH, and market dynamics is a relatively new field in global health. Can you tell us a little bit about what we mean when we talk about market dynamics?
Sure. Well, market dynamics, in the way I think about it, is really understanding the different players and entities within a market and what the roles are, how they influence each other and how they influence the overall performance of the market. So I think of the dynamics the way we study dynamics in physics. It's forces and how they interact. And that information is really critical to understand the health of a market, how well it's functioning, and then think about, are there things we could do to try to strengthen that market or help it function in a more effective way. So there's the analytical piece that I think precedes what we do downstream of that. And while market dynamics is kind of a new term that has come into vogue in the last few years, a lot of that element of understanding markets and helping to match supply and demand and helping to reduce costs so that you can increase access to products are things that have been core to PATH's work really from the beginning of the organization 40 years ago. So we've got some new terminology and we've got some maybe better analytical skills, but it's been an evolution towards what we now call market dynamics and the establishment of a central department that can help support the work that's going on in other parts of PATH who have strong capabilities themselves, but we can provide additional assistance on the analytical side and on the strategy side.
Thank you. Yeah, thinking about the integration of market dynamics with all the various clinical and scientific expertise, public health expertise that resides within PATH. Obviously, as an organization, you're involved in the value chain of commercializing technology and bringing that forth to developing economies. Talk a little bit, if you would, about how PATH works in the middle of the value chain, as I think I've heard you describe in other settings.
Okay, sure. Well, by the middle of the value chain, really what we're indicating is that we don't do a lot of basic research at PATH. Most of that work goes on in universities and companies and other places, and where we tend to be involved is more the applied research and the development process for taking technologies or product candidates from a fairly early stage through development in the case of vaccines or drugs that involves clinical trials, and moving them towards licensure by regulatory authorities, and then introduction and sort of optimization of that new product or technology into new markets, and managing that middle section. So not doing a lot of basic research. We're not necessarily doing really large scale on the ground distribution or the delivery of products. We help develop the strategies for that, but there are other organizations, national ministries, other NGOs that tend to work more in the full rolling out of a new product in country. So we tend to focus in those middle sections, and certainly the market dynamics group can play a role in different ways sort of throughout that process as well. And we'd ideally like to get involved in product development discussions early on to really help teams understand what's going on in the market right now, what are the products that are there already, what's working, what's not working, evaluate some of the competitive products or other products that might be in development to try to address some of the same needs, and really help focus on what are the attributes that this new product needs to have to really meet the goal and have health impact the way we're hoping it will.
Interesting. So obviously doing that sort of work requires a great deal of functional expertise and a wide range of functional expertise, as well as global presence, considering that PATH's activities range from involvement in malaria to family planning to vaccines, to mention just a couple. Three, tell us more, if you would, about kind of Path's organization in terms of both global presence and functional expertise, and how you leverage that against these global health problems.
Okay. Well, we're fundamentally organized into three major areas: a product development program, public health program, and international development. And a lot of the disease expertise resides within our public health group, also in product development. And really we have the the advantage of being a fairly large organization and having worked in each of these areas for a long period of time to put project teams together where we've got in-country folks from our international development group working together with public health and product development, so that we bring understanding about the disease, understanding about the type of product, the drug or biologic, and what's required to develop those, and pull those together to make sure that we're working as intelligently and as effectively as we can. So we have a lot of public health experts. We've got teams that are involved in our public health group that are focused on setting our organizational strategy for different disease areas like malaria, HIV, et cetera. And they interface with the product development groups who are trying to develop new drugs and diagnostics and vaccines, other types of products, medical devices in these areas. So we have very multifunctional teams, and we in Market Dynamics try to bring understanding of markets and how markets work. What are the factors of market? What are the elements that contribute to markets working effectively? Where can things go off the rails a little bit? To work together with our product experts and our disease experts to make sure that we're developing and introducing products in a way that will allow them to be accessible and allow them to have as much impact. So it's a fun organization to work in because we've got people with so many different areas of strength, and all very team-oriented, and these multifunctional teams are really a pleasure to participate in for that reason.
Yeah, it seems like Path is a pretty exciting place to be, for sure. So here we are at the University of Michigan, and as you saw in your visit and your talk yesterday, we have people from the School of Public Health, Public Policy, the Business School, the Medical School, and global health is a great area of interest for many people. Mm-hmm. And people come to it at different points in their career. And I think both you and I share having come to this space of global health and working in nonprofits, having done some other things. And I'd just like to have you speak a little bit to some of your prior private sector experience in biotech or biopharma, and how you've leveraged that and what application you see. Sure.
Well, so most of my career was spent working in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, and I think that experience has been really helpful, knowing how those companies operate from the inside, how decisions are made, what sort of factors are considered in deciding whether to pursue a product opportunity or not. Because Path works very extensively with corporate partners. Really, in virtually everything we do, we're working with corporate partners. We're never the manufacturer of the product, for example. So any new product that we bring forward, whether that's a drug or a diagnostic or medical device or vaccine, is done in partnership with companies that can manufacture those, develop those products and manufacture those products and launch them. And so understanding how for-profit companies work, what their constraints are, what their issues are, how to communicate with them, I think it's been really helpful in my previous positions at Path, as well as in the current position. We're really only able to get things done the way we want to in the global health space if we can work effectively with a lot of different groups, so international agencies, regulatory bodies, and importantly, these corporate organizations. So that I think that understanding the decision-making process, and also just understanding the product development process, because when I worked at Searle, when I worked at Immunex and other companies, I was involved in overseeing and working on portfolios of products at different stages of development. So learned really on the job what the requirements are for preclinical development, what kind of package you need to have to be able to support a decision to go into clinical trials. How do you think about designing clinical trials? What sort of endpoints are going to be important to get regulatory approval? And while I don't make those decisions at Path, understanding that product development process, what the regulatory authorities are looking for, is very helpful in the job as well. So while I've really found my home in global health, all of those years spent in the private sector really, I think, helped me do my job more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were, to speak with a group of students who were later in their undergraduate studies or in graduate school, and they were, saying, hey, I really want to work in global health, but I'm early in my career, what are some of the suggestions that you'd make to them?
Well, actually, I had some similar discussions to that last night after the lecture, and one thing I wanted to convey is that there are, it takes a village, if you will. It takes people with a lot of different skills, as we were just discussing, to work effectively in developing products and innovations and taking them forward and getting them introduced into low resource settings. So we have people at Path who've come into their positions from a lot of different perspectives. We have a lot of folks who started off in the Peace Corps, had the experience of working in country, helping, and not even necessarily in health-related activities within the Peace Corps, but understanding what life is like in low-resource settings and what some of the realities are on a day-to-day basis. We have a lot of people who work at Path who have MPH degrees and have come into this work from a public health standpoint. We have a lot of folks who came in from a scientific standpoint doing product development in the corporate sector who now lead our activities at Path. And then others of us who have some scientific training but have really primarily been trained in business and worked in that area and can think about issues around the financial requirements for products, for product development, and how to think about modeling the performance of a new product in a complex market. So the folks who work at Path have come in from scientific training and experience, working at different types of companies, come straight in from public health. A lot of folks have worked in U.S. public health, at county health departments or state health departments as well. So a lot of different avenues. But I would also remind everyone that what we do is not the sum total of global health either. There's important work going on in university labs and the early stage research that we don't tend to get so involved in, that's really critical. And then there are other activities that are more involved in the large scale distribution of products in country, important as well. So I think what's critical is the passion, and then figuring out what element of this type of work really speaks most to you. Is it public health? Is it working in country to understand problems, research problems, et cetera? Is it working in the lab or working in product development some other fashion? Because we've got folks with a lot of different educational backgrounds who are all making equally important contributions to our work.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I mean, it's very encouraging, right, for people who have a variety of interests in how they might get into the field. Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned you were talking about working with corporations and under the criticality of kind of understanding how corporations make decisions, and that leads us to this idea of the public-private partnerships and the role that those take in pursuing global health challenges. Can you share an example of a private-public partnership that Path was involved in and kind of highlight what culminated as a result of that effort?
Sure. Well, one of my favorite, there are a lot of examples, but I guess one of my favorites is our work in developing a vaccine for meningococcal meningitis, and the product is called Menafravac. And this was really a program that encompassed 10 or 12 years where, with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we worked collaboratively with the World Health Organization, with Serum Institute of India, which is a major vaccine manufacturer, and others to develop and then advance through the various stages of preclinical development, clinical development, regulatory review, et cetera, this important new vaccine to prevent meningitis, which has been historically been a huge problem, particularly in Central Africa. And it was, I think, a classic example of a public-private partnership working well. And Serum Institute has been a fantastic partner of ours, a lot of other projects as well. But in MinAfriVac especially, really done an excellent job of working through the different development stages with the product and getting regulatory approval, getting WHO pre-qualification for the product, which is an important step for vaccines to be procured by UNICEF and Gavi and made available through the international vaccine distribution system, and manufacturing this product and allowing it to be sold at a price that's very, very accessible, so that to date, since the first vaccination in 2010 in Burkina Faso, about 220 million individuals have been vaccinated in Central Africa. And remarkable statistic, but to date, no one who's been vaccinated has contracted the disease. So not only is this a very affordable vaccine, it's among the most effective vaccines that have been developed, and it was really it's really a tribute to this multi-party partnership that was put together and funded by the foundation.
Oh, that is a fantastic success story, and certainly brings home the message about what private-public partnerships can accomplish. Well, thank you, Ray, again for visiting us here at the William Davidson Institute and at the University of Michigan. And I know I speak on behalf of many people that we're just so appreciative of your time and the great work that PATH does. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.